when are you enough? How many times do we sometimes struggle with that thought of self-worth, self-value, and the fact that are we enough? And it's particularly if you're then putting yourself out there as a coach. And the next person I'm interviewing is an equestrian coach. So she was always trying to give as much as she possibly could to the people around her, and yet those inner demons of am I enough? Have I got what it takes to be able to give to others, and am I going to make a difference in their lives? And sometimes the people that struggle with that the most are the people that are looking deep down inside, that are reflecting strongly, and they're not sure of the answers they're coming back with. This is a beautiful soul who's found a way forward, found a way to break the cycle of trauma in her own life, and a way to break the cycle of burnout that she was suffering. It's a wonderful discussion about someone coming to terms with the fact that they found that equilibrium of I am enough, I can be enough in this moment. Yes, I'll still struggle with this at times, but it is something I'm coming to terms with. I hope you really enjoy this discussion as much as I enjoy the interview. Remember to like and subscribe. Share with others if you know of someone that has struggled with the same sort of thing, that sense of worth, that sense of value that they have within themselves, as well as the value they can give to others. All right, this has been very exciting to get you on board for this little podcast. We have Kirsten, who's going to go through her little bio, which is she's grown up mostly around Canberra area, and she's had a big journey through the coaching business industry, which is can be a little bit of a hard road to go and navigate, especially when you're trying to give yourself and your clients the best journey that they can have. How do you navigate that? How do you stay healthy? How do you stay on top of a lot of juggling things that, family and horses and clients and all the other things that go with that? So tell us a little bit about your background.
Thanks, Ben. I'm really excited to be here talking to you. I think it's great. I, like you said, grew up mostly in Canberra. I was 6 when I moved here. I've had horses pretty much that entire time in Canberra, and seen it, evolve and change over the years. Areas I used to ride in that aren't there anymore, etc., that sort of thing. Horse-wise, always just did the teenage tear around thing. Not a lot of professional lessons, not a lot of refinement to what we were doing. We used to just sort of get on and go, ride around Stromlo Forest, that sort of thing. Grew up, did a little bit of pony club, and then in my early 20s, met some people that put me on a bit of a horsemanship journey, and that's where I've ended up now began. I suppose that would have been back in the 90s.
Just a little time ago, when you consider the 90s is it's not as close as it used to be.
Wasn't it?
Just yesterday. Now, I gave you the title to this, which we sort of mulled over back and forth. When do you start to believe?
Mm-hmm.
And so the first question I've got for you is one of the big ones. You are enough. That statement in itself, how do you come to terms with that now?
That's been a journey, a big one of itself, really. When I started out, I guess thinking that maybe I had something to show people, something to offer people and help them. That the imposter syndrome was really strong. It began as just helping friends. Was never really interested in doing it professionally. And I think as time went along and I saw lots of different people and different horses, and I began to feel that maybe there was something. How I feel about it now, it's taken a really long time, but I'm much more comfortable sitting with the concept now that I am enough to do what it is that I'm doing. But it's an ongoing struggle. It ebbs and flows. It's not something I think that you reach one day and go, yep, I've got it. I'm definitely good enough. I am enough. It is an ongoing journey to talk around that, I think, in your own head.
Yeah, that's That's actually really, because you often think, when you get going to be enough at some stage, or good enough to do something, okay, I've reached the point, that's it, cross the line, done, tick that box off, walk away from it. Whereas it always is there, because something evolves, something changes. Am I still good enough? And I step into a different comfort zone, a different style, a different, lots of different things, lots of different clients, so that constantly comes back to, am I strong enough in my own basics, in my own thought process, in my own confidence?
That's right, exactly. And I think it changes so often, because I think in horses particularly, there's just such a spectrum of ideas on how to do things, and what's right for every horse and rider in the moment. And so it's easy to, I think, to overwhelm yourself, particularly now, with all the access we have digitally to content, to overwhelm yourself with oh, I saw something today that's different to how I do it. Does that mean that I've been doing it wrong? And so just starting that internal dialogue can set you off on a little bit of a scale of worry. You have to kind of work through it and go, no, I am actually confident in what I'm offering, and maybe what I saw today is something for me to explore
Yep.
and learn a little bit more about. But it doesn't negate what I'm already doing that is working, or what I'm already offering.
So that's in that point there, like how did you learn to become okay with social content, like with the stuff that's out there and what people brought to you from that social content?
Yeah, that was a real struggle at first. Just the personality type that I am, I will always question myself. And so it wouldn't matter sometimes how confident I was with something, if something was brought to my attention that seemed as though it was the polar opposite, or if there was someone had done an opinion piece, I guess maybe using something that I'd taught or done with horses, and turned it around as to why you shouldn't, or something. It could send me into a little bit of a spin, and I'd have to sit and dissect it and have a look, I guess, at the context of what was being said. And I think what's really difficult about just taking content at face value is we don't know the background. We don't know, what necessarily was happening in that moment, in that training with that horse. And there are times when I'm coaching and I might, be leaving something completely out that someone else might think is really important, but I'm
Yep.
leaving it out deliberately because it's
Yep.
not right for that moment or that
Yep.
combination that's in front of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
I had to be kept comfortable about the fact that I was doing that, and
Yep.
why, and I knew why I was doing it. Yeah,
Yep. But yeah, just that your why. I'm confident with that
yeah,
moment. So how would you
yes.
then describe the evolution of your teaching style?
Oh, it started. I mean, I started out very much, I think, uh, for want of a better word, parroting, but I guess definitely using, what I'd been taught from mentors that I'd worked with, similar programs, naming their exercises, you know, always giving credit to who I'd learnt it from, which I still will always do to a certain extent. But as time went on, I realized that sometimes what was offering wouldn't fit inside those boxes, and so I
Yep.
began to realize that there was something of my own developing,
Yep.
and that ability, I suppose, to cherry pick from the tools that were in my head, and to begin to be okay about that, and have that confidence that this is not I'm not here to show you someone's method. I'm here to help you, and right now there's something coming out of my gut feeling, or my toolbox that maybe I haven't used before.
Yep.
Um, and so it's evolved very much from following a system to, to much more in the moment, a much more organic flow, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
really what you see that horse and that rider or that person on the ground needs right there and then.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right then and there. Yeah.
how do you find that is empowering for them, or
Yes, I
did you?
do. Is
Yep.
Sorry, go on.
Or did you find, like, so some of the other systems that we've talked about before, where it's actually empowering the instructor, not actually the person that is actually receiving the communication. It's actually not empowering the person that's actually needs to be the one that's learning and growing.
absolutely. So that's what I found was that when people are applying a method, so to speak, or a system, sometimes what you've got in front of you isn't going to fit into that box. And
Yep.
it might be that it's right for what the horse needs at that moment to offer an exercise that, might up the ante or put a little bit more pressure on. But there isn't a lot of point in doing that if your rider or your handler can't do it. Because it's all very well for me to come and apply something and then it's not, they can't replicate it after I've gone.
Yep.
And so I think that takes away power from an owner. It takes away that feeling that I can repeat this, I can be confident about what I'm being taught. And so sometimes I might just have to adapt and say, okay, so with that principle in mind of the original exercise, how can I adapt this exercise or adapt this so that the person in front of me can do it? And usually they'll end up further down the track. They might end up where the exercise ultimately was going to end up anyway, but I've just broken it down. And so that's taken a lot of time to develop over the years, is that ability to think on the fly like that and just look at what's in front of me and think, this is what I think this horse and rider need, but they're not ready to be left with it in this form yet. So I'll break it down.
So what allowed you, what gave you the confidence to voice that? Like, what was that turning point for you?
It's, I think it's quite a journey of self. I think that it's not, you really have to get to know yourself and get to know what voices are there that stop me from doing what I need to do. And just sitting down and say, this is what I think needs to happen. What is it that's there saying, but that's not the exercise? Those negative voices will come in and say, but what's the point in allowing this and changing this so much when it's losing the point of the exercise? So I guess I had to examine myself and try to figure out where those voices come from, where that negative self-talk comes in and holds me back from presenting things as best as I could and being okay about doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. So then what now fills your energy pot? Like, because a lot of those things were very draining for a while. Like, so what's your go-to? This fills my energy. This fills my joy.
I love learning. So I get a lot of energy out of learning new things. And I'm a little bit of a manic learner in the sense that I will sit and I will absorb a lot of information at once. And then I'll sit and put that information for a while. And then what I really love is being able then to feed that into what I do and then hearing that it's working. So I love to hear from people that they're reaching their goals, no matter how small they are. And then that, I guess, feeds my energy further into a loop of, okay, so I took some information and I processed it and then I assimilated it into what I do, and that's helped someone. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I love getting messages saying, hey, guess what I did on the weekend? And this is what happened. And it's just, you love hearing that stuff worked.
I always loved the fact that you could, which took you a while to be confident with, that whole taking a high-end complex thing that then comes down to, but this person only needs, as you said, to hear this, because this person can understand this person can achieve this, and this person can make that work. That this is the top of whatever the discipline you're doing in a sport, but this is how that same point of view, that same basic training philosophy comes all the way down to someone at the grassroots level and says, with your horse in this moment, this is what you can cope with and deal with, and these are your fundamental skills and toolboxes should be filled up with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And filtering that information is something that I like. It's almost like a translation, I suppose. I've got a lot of people I go and see. They might feel a little overwhelmed about going to some of the, a big horsemanship clinic. But if I can translate for them and give them lessons in it broken down, they can move on and then do those things. So something that's, been happening a little bit recently that I've been really loving to hear is I know of a couple of people that when I first met them, we were talking about, people that were really worried about getting on, full stop,
Yep.
just getting on.
Yep.
And they're now taking their horses to things where they're moving cows around and, just doing all sorts of stuff. And I think that being able to take what they are now capable of going and doing, because it wasn't ever that they weren't capable of understanding it. It was more that their mindset would never allow them to not be too scared to go
Yep.
to those levels, do those things.
Yep.
And so I think by breaking down that sort of, the higher level stuff that they needed to be able to do, simply presenting it to it in the way that their mindset could cope with, then it just flowed from there. It just flowed because their mind would allow them then to talk to their body and and get So
and that's a really interesting thing, because we often think of mindset in terms of the moment, but we don't always think about the mindset of how much baggage you're carrying from other things, the life trauma of,
absolutely.
and it mightn't even be the horse. It could be a previous horse. It can be even a previous personal relationship that has nothing to do with a horse.
Yes.
It can be, friends that have that one little comment that says, I don't think you can. They're not even meaning it necessarily in a nasty way, but for whatever reason, that's landed with you and gone, no, I can't. That means I can't. So you have the mindset of the moment, but you have the baggage of all of life. And and I know you love that sort of thing. Like how long did it take you to be confident with, I can look at a person holistically in terms of, because we do, as a coach, you got 45 minutes or half an hour to solve their problem. And sometimes we don't want to dig into anything other than a very superficial relationship. And other times you go, look, for you to come through this, we need to dig a little bit. How long did it take you to feel confident to jumping in there?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Like it's I think because I've got an empathetic nature, I have been aware that that's there for a long time, but it is different to be aware to being confident enough to say, is today okay to maybe touch on this? And I think you need to have definitely had, a few lessons and have a bit of a standing relationship before you go there. But certainly, I've had people that have gotten quite emotional in lessons. It's not been anything to do with the horse. It's just been that something else has been going on in their life. And, nothing's a better mirror for the soul than our horse, really. And so I think the biggest things that I see is when people, they feel that and they realize that, and then they let down physically, emotionally, whatever, and the horse responds, and they find that, I think, really quite powerful. And certainly, the science of fear is sort of something that I've been delving into a lot of research and learning on, and just understanding. I think it's really empowering if people can just understand that it is just their nervous system that is letting them down at that moment. They are not. I don't know what it is, but there's a huge stigma in horses about being a nervous rider. It's almost like it's huge. And that, I think, when you are feeling scared and feeling nervous, there's just nothing worse than placing that extra judgment, piling that on top of yourself as well, especially if nothing's really happened. You haven't had a fall, you haven't had a crash, and your horse actually isn't giving you that much trouble. And so all of those sorts of reasons, why am I like this, start to pile up. And I think certainly for me, when I go through those phases, and I do, and when I tell people, they do get surprised, but I as you know, I get very, very scared sometimes about riding, and it's nothing to do with a horse. But for me, it was understanding it was my nervous system letting me down. It was just I was in fight or flight, and it just meant that I was not in a regulated enough state to ride. So I think touching on that with people, I have found, really helps them to remove that judgment from themselves that, oh, what the hell is wrong with me, kind of thing.
Yeah, it has very little to do with are you brave enough. It's actually understanding the
Yeah.
whole breakdown of that. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting, because what you touched on in there as well is, like, as an empathetic person, that's
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of coaches hopefully are fairly empathetic people, hopefully.
Mm. Yeah.
That can be a tricky boundaries, because you want to be caring and giving, but then also for your own health, sometimes we've got to put
Mm.
up boundaries. Like, I know you and I have talked about this before, like struggling with putting up boundaries for clients and still feeling, am I genuine empathetic person then? How did you sort of come to terms with that?
Yeah, that was a really hard one for me. Boundaries, I find them difficult to put in place, and that I just I wanted to help people when I started, but what I didn't anticipate was the level of, I think, the level of self-sacrifice I was willing to do to help others,
Yes. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then to learn the line, and it's, we've talked about it before. It's learning the line between what is actually helping and what is just rescuing.
Yep.
And I think that it's important that we don't want we absolutely want to help, um, not at the sacrifice of self, and also not at the expense of your rider becoming coach dependent.
Yep.
Because I will be there as often as somebody needs me or wants me to be, and that is not the issue. But I don't ever want them to feel like they can't do it without me.
Yeah. Without. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's a hard one.
yeah, yeah, and I think part of that, I think that's sort of all caught up together. I think is that
Yep.
how much help versus how much am I holding them up, I suppose, and
Yep.
not allowing that growth for them as well. And so for me, it was sitting, really sitting down and working out, okay, I'm losing a little too much of myself.
Yep.
And I'll always be like this. I will always be thinking about the people I teach at 2 a.m. It's just how I am. I might wake up randomly and go, oh, you know what, we could try next lesson. Actually, I think that would work really well. And that's part of me I don't necessarily want to,
Yeah. Yeah.
take
Yeah.
away, because
Yeah.
that's how I operate, and I always will. And I think an acceptance of a certain amount of that is important,
It's
and then
okay.
finding
Yeah.
that balance between what's too much and what's not. Yeah.
Yeah. Because that third tier of that is then availability, isn't it? Like, it's how do you
Yeah.
allow yourself to be available? And I think that's a really
That,
tricky one in the last 10 years, because that has changed so much in terms of having someone having a phone on them, and you're at home having a phone on,
oh,
that you can be available
yeah.
if you choose to
Yeah.
be. And that's the important
Yes.
point, like, if you choose to be.
That, yeah. And it's really hard, really easy rather to fall into that. Where always, messengers ding away, or so. I mean, I used pretty basic steps to sort of, if I don't want to, I turn a sleep function on at a certain time now at night,
Yep.
and only as apps will come through. If I want to check the messages, I actually have to go and open the app rather than them dinging,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
notification go off in the background. I have started using that a lot more. The other thing I've started doing is leaving it off me while I'm working my own horses, so
Oh,
that
good.
time,
Yeah.
is for my
Self.
horse and me. I'm completely present for him.
Yep. So
Um,
much more self.
yeah, yeah, much more self-oriented when I do that now. I used to have it on me and stop and look, and there's just, and I think there's a little bit of digital addiction too, right? Like,
Yeah.
we all know what that's like.
Yes.
Is that thing I need to look at? Is that,
I am important enough to look at this.
yeah,
I'm needed.
right now? It's like doctor with a pager, isn't it? Am I needed? But sort of putting that down has been really good. And the other thing I've been doing is actually writing my own horse into my diary, like a lesson schedule.
Yeah, that's
So
really powerful sometimes, isn't it?
yeah,
To,
yeah,
to
and
actually claim that time for yourself.
yes, exactly. This is time I've crossed through. I can't work here. And for a little while it was hard. I was like, oh, I've got this big gap here. And someone says, is there any chance you can? I look at it and go, well, there is a chance. So it's just been, just making that time for self. And I present a better product anyway, because I'm not burnt
Yes.
out, and I'm
Yes.
resentful of. riding my own horses and all of that sort of stuff. So it actually is a better deal. I think both ways that.
Yeah. And that's such an important point, because that is saying no to something actually makes it better for them later, and better for me, better for them, better for everyone, because I'm actually giving to myself, which then allows me to give better and for longer periods of time. Like, so instead of being burnt out and then crashing and going, you know, I'm just an awful person and all the things that come with that, it's actually, I've given to myself, I've allowed myself to have this time, I've filled myself up with what I need to do. And sometimes giving yourself that time also allows you to mull over things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I sit down and plan and get a bit creative, and, you know, not doing everything on the fly and winging it like it was tending to be in the past. For me, it would be nice to find the medium, you know, somewhere between I'm an incredible over planner. There's something in the middle would be nice. You know, what's so strange about that is that I will do that for ages, and then, as you know, I'll go, well, now I've wasted all my time overthinking in the clinics tomorrow, so bang, we're going.
That's that funny personality that you have of, I can be totally flexible, but I want to plan it to do.
Yes, that's right. I want to plan it and make it look really flexible, but it's funny because when I go into a lesson, though, or I go into a group or a clinic or whatever I'm teaching, all of that overthinking actually does go out the window, and it's that presence in the moment suddenly happens.
Scores you well.
So yeah.
So which have you found is the bigger benefit, the flexible or the learning preparation?
I'm finding a good balance between the two. You know, I think, you know, when I did my coaching certificates, there was a lot of emphasis on lesson planning, and it was, I even found the assignments on lesson planning onerous. You know, it was just too much. But you know, not having anything, you can just you risk getting lost. I think is if you don't have the strength for your own sake, because really, I mean, I've done so many clinics as the rider. I can't say that I've ever really gone to a clinic and thought, oh gosh, you know, it was clear this person didn't have a lesson plan. You know, I don't think that's at the recipient end what people are doing. But I think for your own sake, so that you can, because I'm very good at going off on tangents, and this will at least keep some structure about what I'm trying to present. So I think there is just but the flexibility is important. I've had times when I've had a group come along and I've got a lesson plan in mind, and the horses come along and go, oh, I don't like your lesson plan, we're all going to behave like this, and so it goes out the window.
Yes. What's that saying of Mike Tyson? You know, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. Like, that's pretty much the horses. That's very much horses sometimes.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so there's sometimes you just, you know, best laid plans, and then you know, it's high winds and they're all on the end of the ropes like things on strings, and you know, it's all right, we'll go back a few phases from where we were, and I think that's, you know, I'd probably it probably is one of my strengths to be able to go, I'm flexible enough in the sense that if that's happening, I'm okay with that. Like, I've got the tools. Let's go and pull those ones out. We're going back to basics. That's okay. And I can present a group lesson, you know, on something completely different than what we had planned, because you have to adjust to fit the situation. You can't, you can't ask them to be doing whatever it was you might have had in mind under saddle when the horses have turned up completely bug-eyed and spinning around, and
that's the classic thing of, you know, when is a failure not a failure? Like, that's so like, just because I had this in mind, I adapted, and it got everyone to survive and feel confident they could deal with the situation. You know, sometimes just dealing with the situation is greater than having a goal kicked.
Exactly. And sometimes it's, you know, if there's, through the journey of horsemanship I've had, one of the biggest things that we always talked about was reframing what's happening in front of you. Rather than being upset or frustrated or, oh my God, I can't believe he's doing this again, you know, it's a learning opportunity. It's a training opportunity. You know, it gives you when I go and do lessons, and it's, it's quite often we'll be called out to horses that are presenting challenges. If the challenge doesn't happen in the lesson environment, it's very hard for me to help them.
Yes.
So it's actually better that it does, because we can work through it in that moment, and I can show them the tools, test how they feel about handling the tools themselves, and it gives you that ability. If it's always perfect all the time, then you can't stretch, you can't learn. Yeah.
And that's very much, what is enough in this moment, whereas, people get, but last week was this, or 2 months ago it was this, or my friend got a horse at exactly the same time and they're doing this now. That's the classic thing of comparison syndrome, of, the green eye of envy coming out.
Yes, absolutely. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes,
it's just,
I'll go to, yes.
And that's another, it's another symptom of social media too, is that you're always comparing your outtakes to everyone else's highlight reels. I read that once and it stuck with me forever.
Yes, no, that's a great one. I love it.
Yeah, nobody posts them, flying over their heads at a refusal. It's always the really cool stuff, and the ability to edit. We can take videos and we can edit out anything in it that we didn't like, and put great ones up, and I think it's really important that we understand that what we feed ourselves daily is what we take on. So if we are always feeding, they've had their horse 6 months and I've had mine 12 months, and look what they're already doing. It's just no help. And it's really hard to remove yourself, I think, from that.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. What we feed ourselves is what we become, and that whole sense of I haven't got there yet. I haven't got there. Everyone else is, and I haven't got there yet.
That's right, exactly. And it just spirals, and it becomes, again, coming back to anyone to think I got a social media issue. I don't, but I do just. But I am just seeing a lot of stuff. I mean, when I rode as a kid, everyone rode, right? And now I think there's so many more people doing all this learning. I think it's great that we've got all this access to all this information, but sometimes it's actually doing the thing that's going to help. It's not reading about the thing or checking that you've got the right equipment. All important, don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's some rabbit holes there you can get caught down in. And the more you go down in, the less you ride the horse. And the riding of the horse is the only thing really that's going to improve that aspect of the relationship.
Yeah. No, totally. And so how do you have that difficult conversation sometimes where you go, because it can be where a horse can be talented, but the relationship doesn't work for whatever reason. How do you approach those conversations?
In the sense that the horse might be too much, or
the horse is too much, or just not. It's not right for what that person is trying to do. For any number of reasons. Any number of reasons.
It is a difficult situation. So it's always a hard chat to have. I usually find owners are getting there themselves. They may not have vocalized it, but quite often, if that conversation comes up, I often find it's initiated by the owner a lot of the time. There's only been a couple of really rare cases where I've initiated it and said, this is for whatever reason not the right match. But I have definitely had several people that have said to me, "What do you think this is right?" And I think what I usually say is, to me, it comes down to expectation. I don't think that any horse is necessarily the wrong horse. It's more about, do you want to work with that horse? This is what it will probably take. This is what it will probably take to get to where you and the horse are successful. It's a journey that I think anyone can do with the right support, but you have to ask yourself, is that a journey you want to take? Or is it more appealing to have the horse perhaps go to a home where somebody is set up to be that owner for them, and find you a horse that's more generous and more matched to your lifestyle and how the time you have, the goals you have, that sort of thing. I think it's not about, is it the wrong horse? It's about, that's certainly the angle I always take. Here's what it will take to, this is to get there. Is it a journey you want to embark?
Yeah. So that's a really good little switch.
Yeah. Yeah,
when you think,
yeah. It's just how much work do you want to put in?
yes,
That's
the one thing that you
and
cannot change is time.
no, that's right, exactly. And we all have to be realistic about
Mm.
what time we have. And so, you know, buying, it's like in our circles, we always talk, don't buy the Ferrari to take it out for the Sunday drive once a week, because it's you don't necessarily need that sort of horse if all you're wanting to do is take out for a trail ride on a Saturday morning when you finally got time,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
the horse needs to be work all week long. That's performance bred, purpose bred, as athletic in its mind as it is in its body. Is not necessarily the one that you want to pop a saddle on and take out to Cohen with your friends and have a nice ride.
Yes.
And so again, it comes back
do,
to that
do you,
expectation. Yeah,
do you want to enjoy this, or do you want everyone to
yeah,
say that horse looks amazing
yeah.
as you're sailing
Right,
through
exactly.
the air?
Yeah. And so it's just being realistic about that. I know my time is limited for, there's no way I would give a young horse justice at the moment. I don't have
Yep.
enough consistency or time to offer. So I wouldn't buy, if I was looking for myself, I wouldn't buy a really green horse.
Yep.
You know, it's no reflection on ability. It's a reflection on reality, I suppose. What can you offer?
Yes.
And also, is it a hobby or a profession? Because really, if you buy a horse that you are having to keep in work, 6 days a week, to be able to perform, I mean, that tips over the line from hobby to me.
Mm.
That's
Yeah.
become that's something you have to get done every day.
Yes. Yeah, that's a vastly different set of circumstances. Rain, hail, or shine, you
Yeah,
need to be out there doing something with this horse, as
exactly.
opposed to this
Yeah,
horse can go for 3 weeks and then you can ride it 2 or 3 times and it's perfectly fine.
yeah, that's right, exactly. So
Does it keep you
yeah,
safe? Is it generous to you, as you said? Like, that's one of the biggest things. Is it generous to you?
is it generous to you? Can it fill in for you? Because good horses that can fill in a little bit. So, if the question you've asked of it isn't perfect, it can figure out its answer and say, I think I know what you want, Mum, so I'll do it,
Yes.
rather than the ones that go, well, you're not asking me correctly, so see ya. It's just, yeah, different temperament, you know.
Now, I know you used to,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of good coaches, that that weight of expectation that a client has, that they want their horse and to go and be everything they want, and then you feel partly responsible, which is part of that people pleasing type thing, which a lot of coaches have a little bit in their
Mm-hmm.
makeup, which is part of that
Mm-hmm.
empathy gene that goes hand in hand with that.
Yeah.
How did you come to terms with being able to give, but then stay in that, but this is your decision, it's up to you, it's not, in the end of the day, this is between you and that
Yeah.
horse, not me?
That's right. Yeah. And that's where I usually I've given them the information of if it were me, this is the sort of training program I'd be looking at. These are the issues that you have to face. These are the important things that need addressing. Uh, you know, and then I just sort of go on from there to say, whichever way you decide, I'm here. I'll
Yep.
support the journey of learning
Yep.
if you want to do that. Um, to keep you safe and to stay with my own principles, this is how I would suggest that you do it. So
Yeah.
if if I think a horse is possibly potentially dangerous, I'm going to say, okay, well, there's work to be done. We need to be on the ground for this amount of time. Well, how long's a piece of string? But we need to be on the ground until these green lights are in place from the horse. And so I don't want to go back on my principles and say, hey, I'll support you no matter what.
Yeah.
But I will say to them that yes, absolutely happy to be part of the journey of you wanting to stick it out and become who you need to be to make it work with this horse, or we'll also 100% support you in the decision to sell and find another one and help you do so. I think it's that staying neutral about I'm here whichever way,
Yep.
but yeah, ultimately I can't decide that for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And there's
Yeah.
so many emotional reasons why they, even we've all seen where they know the answer that they should be going towards, but there's a lot of emotional reasons why they mightn't be able to step through that just yet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And they
it's
need to
not.
be ready. Yeah.
Yeah. And often sometimes when you're giving advice, you feel as a personal, didn't you trust or believe in my advice? It's often much more than that, isn't it? So much more than that.
Oh, much more than that, yeah. And that was something I used to struggle with in the beginning as well. Is you give advice and it's not taken, and so it's growth. I think as a coach to realize that's not about your advice, and that is absolutely not personal, and that not everybody is going to resonate with something that you've said, and they may resonate with somebody else's, and that's again part of the journey, part of that growth journey of being able to say, you know what, that's okay, and there's no ill will for that. It's it is what it is, and I'm actually and I'm only in it to see people succeed. So if somebody takes a horse away and they haven't taken my advice, but they've gone with someone else and it's worked, and then I catch up with them 12 months later or whatever, and everything's gone swimmingly, I'm thrilled. It's like, this is great. I'm so pleased to see this, because I'm aware of how big the emotional decision was. So for it to have been successful for that person, you can't be anything other than happy. It's important that it
Yes, no, exactly. So what's on the horizons for you then? What's the next coaching step and bridge going forward?
Yeah. So I'd like to get back to doing some more clinics. I've been spending a lot of time, I guess, putting a bit of a format together of what are my key points, what are my key principles, I suppose, that I'd like to share, and how can I present that in a way that's fun, that people feel safe, and just reintroducing the clinic and the group format. We've had a lot of fun in the past, and I mean, obviously, as you know, I've had full-time work go on in the last couple of years, so that's slowed down. But that's definitely where my mind is going next, and a little bit of travel as well. So I'm sort of starting to get inquiries outside of Canberra. So would love to, pop down, sort of one's down Coastway, and just starting to get some groups together, and hopefully people that might come together to the clinics and then sort of get to know each other as well, so they can build a little bit of community.
Oh,
because I think that's also
lovely.
really important.
Yeah.
To be able to support each other between events, that sort of thing. We all know how important that is, and
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It's a hard slog. It can feel very lonely sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely, very, very lonely, and that makes it really difficult. And yeah, it was the format that I learnt in. So all of the horsemanship I did was clinics and groups, sometimes 5 9-day camps. I mean, you were really immersed when you did a 9-day camp, sleeping in your float, let me tell you. And you had to really want to be there. But it was that, the great thing about clinics and camps that length, I mean, quite often people would say to me, oh my God, there's no way I could ride for 9 days straight. But you didn't, right? You didn't. You spent time, because you had 9 days, you could really stretch it out. So there was groundwork, there was rhythm, but there was also just completely horseless sessions, where team building and community stuff. And it was a really fantastic format. And I think that then you can go away from something like that, and you can have breaks of quite long time in between things like that, and do a lot of consolidation, and then take on more, a couple of months later, and add to it later. Yeah, but that was the format I learned in. You had larger, more intense learning further apart. And then if you help in between, there was community, there was other people doing it with you, and you could catch up with.
So what advice would you give to young coaches starting out?
Young coaches? I think back yourself is probably one of the biggest ones. Know who your mentors are. Don't sort of get lost in, pick your tribe, basically. Pick your tribe, and know who you go to when you need advice, and who you want to sort of go to for help. That it can expand, that as the time goes on, that can expand. But in the beginning, you need good support network, and backing yourself. Why are you here? Why did you want to do it? And in terms of are you enough, the question is are you enough for what you're trying to achieve? Not are you enough when you compare yourself to somebody doing something 16 levels higher than you are? Not, not are you enough when you go to a clinic and you're learning about things at performance level and you're just teaching someone how to change diagonals. It's relative. It's relative. So that's a big one for me, because as you know, I mean, I've had times where I've gone to clinics, I've been so blown away by what I'm learning, I've actually come away and almost just quit teaching, because my brain said to me, you didn't know any of that. What on earth do you think you're doing out here helping people when you didn't know that? And there couldn't have been a bigger divide between what I was learning and what I'm teaching.
What are you having to teach? Yes.
Yeah. It's just talked in a whole spiral of God, I'm not good enough. I really shouldn't be doing this. I have no business doing this. Yeah, not really trying to teach that, so it's okay. And so but back yourself support network, and when you're asking, should I be doing it? Am I good enough? Yeah, the question is not in comparison to, the question is for what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. I think also that whole, you don't have to have the answer right there. You can say, I'm not sure about that. I can find it for you. I can help you find it.
I don't know, but I can ask.
Yeah. Whereas you feel
I can help you find it. We can.
No, totally. I think that's but those points that you made are fantastic in terms of having your tribe and really understanding where you have, or your source of mentors and things like that give you that grounding to go, this is fine. This is part of the your learning journey. The same as when you're a rider, the same when you're first getting a horse, all those things. Same as breaking into coaching.
Things. Absolutely. Yeah. Have your tribe. And it's harder than ever now, because as I said, the digital content is accessible. It's harder than ever to just stay focused sometimes on certain lines of information or certain sources of information. But I think that the more shaky a part or new part that you are in your journey, the more important it is that those sources just stay stay constant. Don't sort of branch out too much. You start feeling a bit more confident about doing that. Cherry picking information is a great thing to be able to do, but you do need to have a solid understanding of a certain amount of things before you can begin to successfully cherry pick from different people, I think.
And you don't, the other thing I think is, you don't have to be an extrovert to be good at marketing. And whereas, sometimes you feel that's, especially once you get the right clients, like they'll often do the marketing for you. Like it's as simple as that.
Absolutely. They will. They'll tag you in things, and your little introvert heart will go, oh, no. But it's hard though, right? It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to put yourself out there. So
it's very confronting. Yeah. Very confronting. So, no, totally. But that's, the modern world, you have to be good at everything and be all at everything. And that's just, no one has, very few people have that sort of personality. But what you do is, know your strengths and then work out from there.
That's right. Yeah. And be confident about what the strengths are. And you said before, it's okay not to have all the answers. And, we've often talked before about being in, I operate very much in that gray area sometimes when I'm teaching. And, in the beginning, I used to really worry when I would ask a rider to do something and it clearly wasn't working, and I would just change tack. So I'd be like, okay, this isn't working, let's try this instead. And in the beginning, I used to have this voice in my head saying, oh gosh, if you keep changing things like this, people are going to think you don't know what you're doing, because you don't just stick to one thing. And I used to really struggle with that. But I've realized now it's actually a strength. It's actually not sticking to something that's not working and having another tool in place to try instead that does work. It's interesting how my brain had convinced me that was a weakness. And even if it isn't working, that it is absolutely okay to say, hey, I'm going to have a chat to someone about this. And And then when we meet up next time, I will have had a chat and maybe have some other ideas, and then go to somebody that, that is one of your mentors and talk to them and see what they think. And I don't think that anybody expects you to have all of the answers, is the thing. Like you said before, nobody, if if you think you do, you've probably got a lot more learning to do, is the reality. Because
yes.
it's like we said before, if there's anything more humbling, just when you think you know it all, they tip it all out the cart and say start again. And that I find with, the more I know, the less I feel like I know.
Yeah, so no, totally. Totally.
Ongoing journey. Yeah.
No, this is absolutely been, and this is the classic of, I'm going to let everyone a little behind the scenes of it. It's taken a little while to get to this place of the courage you're showing in this podcast, because allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and yet someone watching hears this confident, anchored person that you wouldn't think has struggled with these sort of things, wouldn't think has struggled with things about, can I do this? And yet you have this knowledge, and sometimes the knowledge is one thing, and the self-confidence to bring it out and to stand by it and go, it's okay. I am standing here and I am who I am.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been, so you're right. What people probably would never be able to reconcile what they see of me if they ever heard inside my head for 5 minutes.
Come on the tour. The bus is leaving every 5 minutes.
Strap yourselves in. Here we go. But, and the fear too that I have felt from time to time, teaching and writing and all sorts of things, and still do up and down, and that vulnerability. There was a long time I tried to never let that show, because I thought you can't be a coach and be afraid. But when it got to the point that I could no longer hold the fear back and began to talk to people about it, I actually found it had the opposite effect. I found that there were people that felt less intimidated, knowing that I actually really did understand what it was like to be that scared. And it was, I think, rather than people thinking, well, don't want to have lessons with her, she gets scared. I actually found it was the complete opposite. And it's
totally.
And I heard somewhere once that there's a big difference between competent and confident, and it doesn't mean, like I said before, that stigma of getting scared doesn't mean the confidence is gone. It just means that for whatever reason in the moment you're not feeling like you can really nail it. And and like recently going into the cow sports with my daughter, as you know, like how sick I was in the stomach at the beginning of it all, to the journey where I am now, and just how we sort of went through that together. And I enjoyed being a beginner. I enjoyed being somewhere where nobody really knew me, and I could be the beginner and enjoy the support. That was really fun too, being able to say, just honestly to people, the first time I went in and had a go, I was like, guys, I am just like freaking out. And and that,
totally.
That was okay to say that, So,
and allowing our brains to be that beginner again, so because sometimes we get to a certain learning point and we go, I don't want to have to go. But it's wonderful for, once we get over that initial thing of really recognizing how our brains learn things, get overwhelmed by things, even sometimes when we're confident with something or getting confident, but the brain goes, no, I'm overwhelmed, I can't do it.
Can't do it.
It falls back to whatever its competency level is, and then you just work forward again. Take a breath, reset. Not everything has fallen apart. It's okay.
No,
go again.
It's okay. Just like for a second, but you can move forward. And I think I'm trying to learn some new skills at the moment. I'm trying to learn some in-hand sort of classical dressage type stuff, and it's very different to what I'm used to. And I find myself just putting the tools down and saying, I suck at this. It's too hard, and then I have to stop and breathe and pick it back up and try again, and just realize it's just about having that. No, I don't have the muscle memory. And it's and that it's okay. As I said, is another big growth thing. It's okay for you not to know how to do something, to be the beginner, and start from the beginning. And it's given me a lot more empathy, which I'm not sure I needed more of, but I do have it now. given me more empathy when I'm teaching and somebody will say to me, oh, oh, could I just put the flag down for a minute? And now I absolutely am like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
let's, and
Yep.
then reset, like you said, and come back to it and start again.
Mm-hmm.
And the one and only ski lesson I ever had was another big exercise in just how overwhelming it can be to learn something completely new that's scaring you a little bit. I hated
Yeah,
it. So yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
I have nothing but to thank you for this. This has been absolutely brilliant. I'm glad you've been so brave and allowing yourself to be so vulnerable to come and do this with me. I really appreciate it. And I think those lessons of being strong to yourself, being true to yourself, you are enough. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, just take a breath and reset.
Reset. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Ben. This has been great.
As always, you were fantastic.